I am trying to make an actual TV show.
It's so hard to find a funny show that isn't filthy. I watch them, but I don't want to.
Let's do this.
Fire, like lots of fire.
So dedicated.
So cool. Where's it go from there, you know?
Oh, have I got your attention now?
This is bigger than you can handle.
Got any plans for tonight?
What are you waiting for? Let's go.
Cool? Absolutely!
What did we think of the show? I don't know about you, but it didn't even look like a TV show. It looked like the first half of a blockbuster movie. So, Zorro's back, the masked vigilante. How cool is that? So join me in welcoming to the stage our creatives and producers and stars. First of all, I'd like to welcome Sergio Pizzolante, executive producer, president of Sequoia Studios Commercial and Distribution. Then we've got Glenda Pacanins, executive producer and partner of the 19 and 9 company. And last but most certainly not least, someone I'm sure you're all familiar with, the very talented and sickeningly handsome Cristo Fernandez, Mr. Football is Life himself. I was going to ask him to sing the song, but I thought that might be a bit embarrassing. Yeah, so thanks for that. Good job. Just for a bit of context, because Sergio's too modest to say it himself, Zorro is billed as Spain's biggest and most expensive TV series ever. It's been sold to 28 territories, is that right?
Yes.
Yeah. And has premiered in the US, Latin America, and Spain. It's appeared in more top 10 lists than Taylor Swift so far. And so welcome, Sergio.
Thank you.
First question. When you were first putting this together, people told you couldn't make a project, big IP, with a big budget, in a Spanish language for an international market. So tell me how you went about proving all of those people very wrong.
Well, first I have to be super thankful for everybody that is here and watch it. And for me personally, as a producer, I know I speak for Glenda, the fact that I see families here, I see parents with their children, is the most valuable praise I think any filmmaker can get. But yes, the story behind this series, about 6.5, probably 7 years ago, we started talking, a bunch of Latinos saying, why has this character been in California, which was part of Spain, but Mexico when the story is happening, why has this story never been told in Espanol? And nobody could answer, other than, well, you can do it low budget. And he said, no, we have to do it right. And in that journey, in that quest, I guess we sort of felt that since we're telling the story of a hero, we started believing a little bit in ourselves. And, I got on a plane, went to Spain about 4 years ago, 3 years into the process, and we found a fantastic partners in Sequoia. I was not part of the company then. And David Martinez summoned Carlos Portela. He had created some global hits like Cable Girls and Velvet Underground, so a very prolific writer who knew how to write female characters. But from the beginning, and this is why I'm very happy to be sitting here with Cristo, and for those of you worried, he does come back on Flashback. And we're gonna talk about something else today. He'll be fine, he's fine. We wanted to create a diverse and inclusive Zorro. We wanted to celebrate, that this is an American character, and innovating on a 100-year-old IP, which we're gonna get into, was sort of when we started creating a challenge. But yes, ultimately we found the partners around the world: Media One in France, Prime Video in Latin America and the US, Televisión Española in Spain, and then Mediaset in Italy, M6 in France, and slowly but surely, we were able to create a modern version of such an iconic character.
Yeah, you mentioned it yourself that Zorro dates back to 1919. which was Pulp magazine writer Johnston McCulley's version, wasn't it? Since then, there have been numerous iterations all over the world of varying quality and different kinds of interpretations. How did you go about honouring the original Zorro IP whilst bringing a modern and fresh spin to it?
Well, I think we were very respectful of honoring what we had. It was a big responsibility. I remember the first week on the set, everybody was sort of nervous, and directors would take 6, 7 takes of something that it was good, but people, we all realized we're doing Zorro. Like, this is it. This is we cannot get it wrong. And yes, we wanted to create a version that all audiences could feel themselves in. This is the Zorro I remember. But younger audiences that may not even know this superhero exists would find it fresh and modern. So I think it's a testament to Portela, the writer, Javier Quintas, the director, and Pacheco, who you saw is a Spanish comic book artist that had worked with Marvel and DC. And this show was completely storyboard, which is atypical. But Pacheco did all of the storyboards, and this is why we had all these cinematic shots, and we got inspiration from video games, Korean action films, and again, how do you make something classic but make it fresh?
Yeah, I mean, it's no secret that commissioners are very risk averse at the moment. They're demanding IP. There's no bigger IP than Zorro in the Latin world, and to a big extent around the world. I mean, was the IP important to getting it commissioned, or was there more to it than that?
Oh, definitely. Well, definitely, but in a way, somehow, when we started going into Hollywood, and we said, let's do Zorro, we're like, Zorro is like, it's outdated, and it was a little frustrating because, again, the rationale was, if you're gonna make it in Spanish, you have to work with little money, and we didn't settle. We kept grinding and pushing, but yeah, I think the power of the IP. Once we got in front of the right partners, was key, absolutely key.
And I think I'm right in saying that you consider it very important to stress that Zorro should be seen as an international series rather than a Spanish or Latin show. Talk about that.
Yeah, that's very true. One of the things that you may have seen, there are Native American characters, there's Chinese characters that you will discover throughout the series. Of course, Diego is a Spaniard. There's Mexicans. There are Californians, which are, back then, California wanted to be a republic, not necessarily part of Mexico or Spain or even the United States. And then the Russian. This was a very modern city, Los Angeles, even though in 1834 was, like thousands of people, not even hundreds of thousands of people. And one thing is that we wanted to have all these characters coexist. We always say that not from an anthropologic view. Like we didn't want to be like necessarily respectful of a particular Native American tribe, but more we put more importance in there and being front and center. Cristo's character, Nalin, his sister, Cuervo, and some other characters that you will see throughout the series. But yes, it was a very international place where things were happening.
Sure, and maybe you could talk a little bit about how Zorro is Latin America's original superhero. In the US you've got Marvel, you've got all of these superheroes, but Zorro is very much for the Latin market, the superhero. And it was also a show that it gave you an opportunity to tell a Latin story without Latin stereotypes.
Correct. Well, and not only Latin, a lot of people don't know, and they find it surprising, Zorro was the first superhero, period. From 1919, when DC and Marvel started creating comics, Bob Kane made Batman as an homage to Zorro. And Bruce Wayne is Diego de la Vega, the Batmobile is Tornado, the Batcave is the cave of Zorro, Alfred, of course, it's Alfred. And in some of the comic book adaptations, you see Bruce Wayne leaving the theater when his parents get murdered. The movie he's watching is Zorro. And this is in the 1990s. The creator, Justin McCluskey, I always butcher his name. The guy wanted to create a Mexican superhero. Not wanted, but he felt this character of California. But if he made it a Mexican, Anglo audiences from the era would have not read about a Mexican or Latin superhero. He drew inspiration from Joaquin Murrieta, which was a bandit, but he also drew inspiration from Montecristo and from the Three Musketeers. So, but yes, the first real iteration of a superhero was Zorro. And from then on, 20, 30 years later, you know, Batman, Superman, and all of these characters in the Americas of the 40s starting popping up. And you know, it was a bandit that stands for justice. Zorro is, of all the superheroes, there's one of the big themes in this series is that revenge is personal, justice is for all. This is key to his character, and he's always stood for justice. Zorro.
That's amazing. I had no idea that Batman was based off of Zorro, but now it makes perfect sense. Yeah. Glenda, if I can bring you in, how important was it to have the themes of diversity, inclusion, indigenous cultures, and strong female characters?
It was so important from the very beginning, because I feel like for today's audiences, for modern audiences today, not only did we need to pay homage to the classic character, which we all grew up, I mean, you are younger than us, Cristo, so maybe you didn't grow up as much as we did, but it's a character that is so dear to us, but we knew that for today's audiences, the relevancy needs to be authenticity, right? And as Sergio was saying, in California, in the 1800s, it really was a melting pot of indigenous peoples, Americans who had come out west, the Spaniards, the Mexicans. So for us, really being able to represent that authentically was the right way and the organic way of being able to tell that story in a meaningful way to today's audiences. And as far as the female characters, well, obviously, as a female executive producer, it was always my vision to be very upfront about the fact that we didn't have damsels in distress. We didn't have, like, you know, the girl waiting to be rescued by her knight in shining armor. And all of our producing partners, Sergio, Carlos Portela, who he mentioned, is brilliant at really being able to capture the nuances of what it's like to be a strong female character, but not losing your femininity. So that was really important as well. And if you watch the series, and I really hope you all watch the series, you're going to see that every character has a reason for being. But specifically, every female character has strength that you wouldn't imagine. That is very unexpected. And I will leave it at that because I will not do spoilers.
And obviously the show is set in California in the mid-1830s. I believe that you employed historians, and the research was quite extensive.
Yes.
You know, why do you think it was important to go that deep into it, and how did that inform the series?
Well, again, speaking to the authenticity, you know, audiences today, you can smell fake. You can smell things that don't feel real and authentic. And as much as Sergio said, this isn't a National Geographic series. This isn't a docu-series, so it was never intended to be accurate historically to the nth degree. But we wanted to make sure it was representative of the truth, of the actual history that happened at the time. And Portela, being a Spanish author, he wanted to make sure that he really captured the Mexican point of view authentically. So we were very fortunate to have on the writing team a Mexican historian and writer who really, you know, was coupled with Portela and being able to flesh out the characters where Portela might not have had the first-hand knowledge. So that was very important as well.
Cristo, if I could just bring you in. I mean, since we've been here, people have been collaring you to have a selfie taken with you. You're a big star off of the back of Ted Lasso. So why did you decide to take part in this if you're going to be killed off in the first 10 minutes? I'm sure people want to know.
Well, thank you very much to everyone who came and who is asking for the selfies, as you say, and for the support. I mean, well, first of all, I pitched for Zorro not to be killed. I was like, are we sure we have? Does he really have to be killed now? But no, more than that, I was lucky enough to meet Sergio and Glenda, and Sergio we met in London when shooting Ted Lasso, and
That's bucket list. He had me on the set of Ted Lasso,
yes,
taping the
yes,
final episode.
Yes, and like, of course, I mean, I did grow up being a fan of El Zorro. I remember my Zorro toys, and it's a dream role, whether if it gets killed or not. I think what stands out here is that it's a different take on El Zorro, which is, not to mention again what Glenda and Sergio have been talking about, but it's a different way of telling this story. It's modern, it's international, it's multicultural, and of course it had a lot of responsibility, and me as an actor, I want new challenges. I'm grateful with Danny Rojas, and I'm grateful with everything I'm doing, but I love action. So for me, just even doing those stunts, it was a challenge. I was happy to do them, and to practice and go for it. And putting the costume on was a dream come true. And
How was that? Did you stand in awe of yourself in front of a mirror?
yes, and I took pictures and sent them to the family.
That looked good.
Yeah. Yes, and I mean, and since day one, the conversation with Sergio was like, yeah, Zorro might be here a little cameo, but the idea is to develop more and go more into who this first Zorro was, and honoring the Native Americans back then and the indigenous. And I think it's also another reason why I was passionate about joining this Zorro version, this new take, and going for it, like being diverse. And as Sergio says, I think for me also in as a filmmaker, because I'm developing my film company, Spectrum X Films, you can go and take a look. And like, how can we tell these new stories, and us as Latinos, how can we make that difference? Because what Sergio is saying, I've experienced even in my little way, not with that much of experience that Sergio has, but if it's a Latino story, I've done things in Mexico where the American budget goes and you just do it little, and then you have a cameo of $1 million, but everyone in the crew got paid nothing. But I've been in projects where it's completely different. We go with all the budget and everyone gets, everything's good, fair, perfectly done. And I think Zorro is an example of that, and also other projects I've been doing. So yeah, for me it's all about telling great stories, and both as an actor and a filmmaker. And I think I'm very proud of El Zorro. I think it's a different take. It's very cinematic, and I look forward to hearing your thoughts for this season 1, and hopefully for the prequel.
Yeah, you've spoiled it for me. I was just going to say, we've got a world exclusive here today. The Zorro universe is going to expand. Sergio and Cristo, get into that. Tell us all about it.
Yeah, this is exclusive information premiering here at SeriesFest.
For us, when we were developing this, and we wanted somebody like Cristo to do this, because we always say that in order for Zorro to live, Zorro had to die. And it was a way for us to cut with you have to understand, my favorite Zorro is the 1940s version with Tyrone Power. If you haven't seen it, it's fantastic. A lot of people is the Disney version, the Guy Williams. Then Banderas is the iconic reference for a lot of younger audiences in their 20s and 30s. But since 1998, which is when the Banderas movie came out, nobody had made Zorro. There's always somebody says, well, but there was a novela de Telemundo. It's like, doesn't count. Doesn't count. It did.
I was there at Telemundo.
Yeah,
it did count for us.
No, it's a great novela. But it doesn't count. Like, no.
Not on the same scale as what you're trying to say.
Correct. No, but it was very respectful also of the IP. The first novela in HD, high definition, so for Sony Pictures. But we wanted to sort of reset the button. And yes, Zorro, I remember we were in London. He was saying, "Do I really have to die? Is there can we not cut before?"
Please don't kill me.
And I was like, "We're going to burn you, Cristo, right in the next scene."
I did that stunts too. I got burned.
No, but yes, to the point of we are already not only discussing season 2, but it was always the plan to have prequels. I always use Rogue One as an example of something that the Star Wars universe did phenomenal, where we're going to tell the story up until that point. So that story, that arc would end as the series begin. But the vision for Cristo is to tell the origin of the character, because something that we're also very proud of is John Gertz, who is sort of the albacea. I don't know how to say that word in
He's
English.
the rights holder.
Yeah, he inherited from his father. He was really surprised and happy with us innovating in something that is really hard to innovate. Like, what is the motivation of this character? And in case of Diego de la Vega, it's because they murdered his father. He needs to know, but where did he come from and how did he get the identity? It's very mystical also. And you see this fox, who is the one that the gods choose, who is pure at heart. And I'm not gonna spoil the series, but his sister eventually becomes pure of heart and is TV determined. I know, but this is why she didn't get it, because she's not pure at heart. That's in the pilot. And Diego supposedly is. But anyway, this story of Zorro Kumangwapur, which is the indigenous version, Native American, this is a story we're going to explore, and we're already having conversations.
Yeah, Cristo, was that on the table from the start, or is that something that's come along relatively recently? And how do you envisage your Zorro going forward in the future?
Well, if there's anything that this industry is known for, is that there are no certainties. You can never guarantee anything. Even like, thank you for watching Ted Lasso, but no one will have ever thought Ted Lasso was gonna become Ted Lasso, what it is. So you always hope for the best. You always work hard, and you put all your bullets in what you are passionate about. And in this case, I mean, Sergio couldn't guarantee me that Zorro was gonna be the best thing ever, but I can say that I feel very proud. And the conversation since day one was like, yes, you will be in it, but we have other ideas, we have hopes. This is what we're doing, and that's what captured me. And again, also just knowing that I would play Zorro, I was so excited. But of course, beyond that, it's how can we make a difference with this Zorro? How can we tell it differently? And yeah, personally, for me, even in Mexico, I'm trying with every project I do to develop opportunities for people I believe in front and behind the camera. And personally, I feel a big responsibility in my country with the indigenous communities. I think there's so much that need to be done, and if hopefully our prequel will be part of that, and we can create a great story that will give lots of new people opportunities.
Amazing. Can't wait for that. One last question before we open it up to the audience. Yeah, go ahead.
Really fast, Neil. And I think, and all of you guys here are creators. You guys have passion projects, which is why I love this festival, by the way. The energy that you guys have, the vibe here is so amazing. Okay, back to my point. I think as the producers and the creators of this version of Zorro, which you guys saw is a different take because of that world that we were building, to see the response, not just from the critics, but really from the fans all over the world that have already premiered and have already watched the series, saying that the fact that we have this indigenous mythology, this new world that we've built, that we've been able to modernize a character that's been around for more than 100 years in a way that nobody had done before, that was a huge risk for us. So to be able to hear from the fans and say, wow, this is one of the best things about the series that we enjoyed, is really gratifying. It's like, phew, okay, we didn't mess it up.
Well said, well said. And last quick question before we go to the audience. I was in a panel session before with Betsy Beers from Shondaland, and she was talking about the importance of music to Grey's Anatomy. Tell me about the soundtrack, which has really helped pick up interest a few episodes into the first season.
Yeah, that is, I'm very proud. That is my obsession, I guess. You have no idea, and to any young filmmaker in the room, music is the key to everything. You know, Jaws would not be Jaws without that boom. And that's Indiana Jones, Superman. There's no good piece of content that is not accompanied by a good piece of music. Period. Hard stop. Or absolute silence, because that's the mood you're going for. But people underestimate the importance. So yes, we wanted to create, on top of the amazing score that is fantastic, we went to a big producer, Julio Reyes Copello. He's working the last 3 years with Ricky Martin, J-Lo, Mark Anthony, Pablo Alborán, Laura Pausini. Like, he's the demigod of pop music in Spanish. And we did a partnership with Universal, and we created a 14-track soundtrack, which is on Spotify. Just go to Zorro soundtrack. And it has, Keith Urban and Karim Leon, which is one of the hottest and fastest growing. He was in Stagecoach last week. A Mexican regional artist playing in country music festivals, which is incredible. Peso Pluma, you've heard, of course. Raza. No, but it has Rosario and Juanes and Morat. So
Luis Fonsi.
Fonsi, who did Despacito. So It's a great piece of soundtrack. It is integrated in the series. The song that you hear when he's fighting, it's Karin Leon. And again, presenting a show with a regional music song integrated on the pilot was like, wait, what is that music there? It's because this is the story we were trying to tell. It's a modern take.
Fantastic.
And music was a key part of it.
Yeah, absolutely. Who's got a question for Zorro and Zorro's producers? Over there.
I really appreciate you took the effort to be authentic in the shooting. I think that's imperative for any piece in which it's a period piece. And I'm curious, when you were working with your historian, did Joaquin Murrieta ever come up?
It's a great question. Well, Murrieta happens in the 1860s. So by this time, he's probably a baby or not born. And there's a catch. There's a series called La Cabeza de Joaquín Murrieta, and it was an Amazon series. So for us to go into that character on season 1 was not in the cards. Murrieta may play a part in season 3 or beyond because Murrieta was a big inspiration for Zorro. As it was, as I said before, Montecristo, William Lampard, which is an Irish guy. So yeah, Murrieta is part of the conversation, but he hasn't been born. I think it was probably a baby in 1834.
Influence as a real person.
Oh, absolutely.
Now, helped create Zorro.
Oh, the creator of Zorro, 100% took inspiration from Murrieta, but he said, my guy is Mexican. White Anglo-Saxons in the 1920s would have never read a comic book on a Mexican guy. These guys were, it was a little bit of racism, of course, as is to this day persist.
Yeah.
It's a great question.
Yeah, it was. Thank you very much for that. Unfortunately, I've been told that that's the only question we can have. Blame me.
Oh, really?
We've rambled on too. What about one more? How about one more? One more. Okay, one more.
There's
yeah.
a lady over there.
I've got a question for Cristo,
Mhm.
Randy from Sydney. I think everyone feels like he played Danny Rojas with such heart and why we really fell in love with that character. I think even in that short prelude at the beginning of the show, we also felt that connection and that sort of heart. And I guess my question is about you and your acting. What is it about your life that you kind of tap into to feel that?
Oh, thank you for asking. I think for all of those actors there, I think as actors you always think, how can I completely change myself? And I hope one day I can play a role where I do another accent and I have short hair and I am overweight and like Christian Bale, change completely, But I truly think that what's given me the opportunities as a young actor that I'm starting, it's to really, and it was my learning process when I went and studied my master in acting in the UK, like really know who I am and really be truthful to who I am and embrace that. And like my background is football, soccer. And for many years, I tried to get away from that. And who would have thought that football, soccer was going to give me my first opportunity? Football is life. and then here, like Zorro, so I love sports, I love actions, I love stunts. So being truthful to that and everything, single thing I do, I try to make it very Mexican and understand that part of me and I take the work serious, but I don't take myself serious. And I hope I express that well, and I see that in many of my heroes that I admire. And it's like when I am on set, I'm just there to have fun because I'm not curing cancer. I'm not doing none of those things. I'm trying to hopefully inspire people with great stories, but all my work and my research, I do it beforehand, so that when I am on set, I try to have fun, good vibes, and collaborate with cast and crew. And just to finish, because I think we have to finish, I think one thing that Sergio just said, like 8 years or how long it took, and for all of those people here that, because I identify with you guys because I'm also developing my film company and things like that. My first feature is now out, Sisters. It took 8 years. Zorro took 10 years. I recently met my hero, Guillermo el Toro, and he told me Pinocchio, being him, Pinocchio, took him 15 years. So I believe in hard work, but making dreams come true takes time. So I think it's all about discipline, patience, and working hard and surrounding yourself with the people you trust. And for all of those trying that, it's not easy, it takes time, but it will be worth it. So
Yeah.
we'll get there, we'll
Thanks,
get there.
Cristo. Yeah, and Cristo's going to sign a little bit of Zorro merchandise outside if anyone's interested in that.
Yes.
No, that's true. So by
It's
all
true,
means,
it's true.
go and say hello to
I
him.
promise.
Thanks everyone for coming out. Sorry to have run over slightly. Thank you very much.